So here's a training that we put together a couple years ago on planning. Miss Kim, Miss Dawn talking about how they use our creative curriculum, incorporating that play-based philosophy, and in this case, a topic with Eric Carle. So without further ado, here's Kim and Dawn talking about how they use their bucket system or their bin system to plan for their classroom. Make sure you take notes, turn that into your director, have them give you a half an hour of continuing education credit. Are you kidding me? These ladies have over, I don't want to age them, 40 years experience between the two of them. They know what they're talking about. This is continuing education. It's just a smart way to plan. Have fun with this training.
We are learning about Eric Carle for a month. It is the theme of the month, but we also touch on spring with that, weather, the holiday, which is St. Patrick's Day, coming up. So, yeah.
So we're not a theme-based center. We are play-based. We're child-based. But the way Dawn and I have always tried to plan is basically on a bin. So we've spent years putting our things into bins. We have several of these, and a lot of times we've actually taken ours and taken an author or something that interests both of us or the children. We found that most of the time the kids are into something very interesting, and we found that they like it, and so we've taken a bin and put a lot of things into it. One of them is Eric Carle, and he's a very interesting author, has a very large amount of books, and we have taken a bin, taken a lot of his books, and taken a theme and added a large amount of things to it. So not only are the books in here, but we have taken files, and every time we have done a large group activity, small group activity, anything tabletop related, inside, outside, science, anything that we could do in a center, it has gone into this bin, into a file, and we keep those things. We found that this is actually better than planning in a planning book or even planning off of Pinterest. Now, Pinterest is great, Google is great, but we often will print those off and stick them in the file because next year we can pull those and use them again and again instead of going back to your Pinterest.
And saving examples is it really helps you pull that. Oh, that's something that we did. The kids enjoyed, had a lot of fun. We know exactly how to prep and plan for that particular activity.
And often we'll have the instructions and everything in here along with the examples, so we already know how to do it. We know exactly if it worked with this age group or a little older or younger. That way we know that it's probably not going to work with these guys, or yeah, it's going to be great. Plus we can also, if somebody else in a classroom wants to use this bin, they know, yeah, we're going to have to make it easier for toddlers or make it a little bit more difficult for the next classroom up. We've accumulated a lot of items over the years. The thing that has made this great is that everything stays in here and stays in a bin, stays together. We found that lending these out oftentimes is not always conducive, only because it doesn't always come back in the greatest of shape. That's one thing about when you are planning for your own classroom or for yourself, you tend to get a little stingy with your things. You want to, if you are borrowing other people's things or you are in someone else's classroom, that's one thing that Dawn and I have often asked of other teachers is be considerate of people's things, be considerate of a classroom, be considerate of the things that you're using. You need to put things back. You need to remember that somebody spent a lot of time, a lot of money on those
And
items.
these bins, they didn't just come about overnight. I mean, like Kim said, it's taken years of gathering and finding, collecting things. And Kim and I are really good about, when we're out and about, keeping our eyes open. Good places to find things, to start theme bins are thrift stores, yard sales. You don't have to go out and buy the most expensive things to create a bin. You just need to think outside the box and keep your eye open for stuff. That way, if you have, some of our books, when they get a little extra loved, and we keep our eye open for books, and these are the ones that are a little more loved, go in our reading area and offer to the kids. And the ones that are nice are teacher touch books only that we use at story time, and then they go back in the bin to stay nice. What's also nice about a theme tub, after creating them, you've also got instant centers. You've got the magnets that you've made that go along with the theme. You've got your writing stuff that you laminated last year. You've got stuff in a bag that goes right into the sensory bucket. So you just make your life a lot easier. It really is working smarter, not harder.
Absolutely. The great part too is when you go to plan, and Don and I still oftentimes will write out our plans in a book. You can, if somebody is going to cover for you, you can tell them, I'm using the Eric Carle bin. They know that your bin is already in the classroom. They can automatically pull from whatever's inside the classroom bin. That makes anybody who comes into your room know that all your plans are already inside the file. They're already inside where everything is already right here. You don't have to go searching. You already know that everything that you need is right here.
There. Along with planning too, I believe that planning is definitely a collaboration between you and your co-teachers in the classroom. It is a constant bouncing of ideas off of each other, themes. That way everybody feels like they've done their part, and this is their classroom. I brought this to this theme, and I brought that to that theme, and it's a really working together to come up with really good stuff. I know Kim and I a lot would bounce ideas off of each other, and I would start with something, and she would bring some outside of the box thing to it, and it would turn into the most awesome activity or center, because we bounced ideas off of each other. And we shared the work, but we also shared the compliments that came from that, from parents, from the kids telling us how much they liked it.
We also always made sure the entire day was planned for. So at one time we had a co-teacher who planned for her afternoon. She enjoyed that. She wanted to do her planning for her afternoon. At one time we had a co-teacher who didn't. So we made sure the afternoon was planned for, and they always had activities to do. It is our responsibility as leads in a classroom to always make sure that the day is completely planned for. It is always our responsibility to make sure that the room is completely taken care of, and you don't ever want to leave a classroom hanging. That is not okay, never something that you want to have happening. If you are the one getting the planning time, you want to make sure that you're the one taking advantage of that planning time. It's your responsibility to make sure the entire day is planned for, that the kids are taken care of, and that day is taken care of. If you want the afternoon planned for by somebody else, you need to make sure that they're given that planning time. So you want to make sure that afternoon that activities are planned, make sure that they're getting planned. If you want them to plan for those, give them some of your planning time. If they don't know how to plan, it's okay to say, if you don't know how to plan, we will educate you on that. We'll help you through that process. That's okay too.
Mm-hmm. This also makes a nice transition when you head into another theme too, because everything packs up nicely into a tub. And as you can see, we are finishing out one thing and starting in a new, and our classroom still looks full of life, and parents can walk in and go, oh wow, this is what they learned, and this is what they're learning.
Absolutely.
So really, when you first sit down to plan, again, I feel like it should be a collaboration between you and your co-teacher or teachers. start with a blank calendar and then plug in things that you already know are happening. If you go to library every Monday like we do, plug that in, plug the times in. If there's a holiday coming up and you've got a special event or a party, plug all of that stuff in first, and then decide, your themes and what week those themes are going to work for you. Pull books related to the themes, or pull your tubs. Then you can start pulling old activities and saving more work for yourself that's sitting in front of the computer or Pinterest or the mailbox, wherever you get your ideas. Look at what you have first. Use some of that stuff that really is you already know is foolproof because you've done it for the last 2 or 3 years, and then go back and fill in the blanks with new ideas. And I think finding new things to do too kind of helps keep you motivated as a teacher. I mean, some of this stuff, after you've done it 6, 7, 8 years in a row, it gets a little mundane to you, not so much to the children. It might be their first time of doing it. But I think plugging in new things that you haven't tried yet really help you keep your head in the game as a teacher.
Well, and I think if there's a developmental milestone too that your kids are missing, you can also focus on, hey, I need to get to that. I know our kids, sometimes their scissor skills were skipping out, or we were missing our fine motor skills, or we knew this kid was really needing this. So we would make sure those activities were not skipped in that week or that month. And so we would make sure we planned those activities. As you progress as a teacher, you'll see those, or maybe your teachers will say, hey, we need to make sure we're not missing those activities. Mm-hmm. So we're going to include those this month, and here's the activities we're going to do to make sure we are including those this month. Mm-hmm. So make sure that you're talking to your teacher, hey, is there something that the kids really need to focus on this month, so you can get those activities plugged in as well. There's a lot of fun activities they don't even know they're learning while they're getting to do fun things.
To an untrained eye, an activity might look like just an art activity, but they spent time drawing. They spent time maybe with a teacher direction, 1, 2, 3 step direction, drawing it out, cutting. So you got some fine motor in there. Then you called them over later to add some text, some scripts. You've got literacy. So there's a lot of different elements in one activity to make it nice and rich. If you have nap time and you have other teachers in your classroom at nap time, really give them those jobs of pre-prepping your activities so you can put it in a Ziploc bag. Everything's cut out and ready to go. Make the activity individualized. Maybe you have kids that have scissor skills that are awesome, that they don't need everything cut out for them, but maybe you have 1 or 2 kiddos that do. The activity does not need to look identical for each child. It all depends on where they're at, and then placing yourself next to those children or pairing them with a student to help move them along that activity. So everybody's being challenged in their own way.
We are basing all of our curriculum on a creative curriculum style curriculum, and it is very intensive. So it's something that I can't tell you in a 5-minute synopsis of what it is. So it is very literacy based. We do include a lot of literature into all of into both centers and into all of the centers in our classroom. It is something that if you want more information, we are going to be making sure that all of our staff are educated on that, hopefully doing another training. But it does allow a lot of play-based learning. It does touch on all of the developmental aspects of a child. We make sure that that's why we do all this. That's why we make sure that, like she said, you are cross-curricular on everything that they're learning, making sure that we touch on every aspect so that when they get into kindergarten, they have learned all the aspects of what they need to know when they reach that stage. That's something that we need to make sure that we're training each of our staff on. but it is very child-focused, purposeful play. But that is the main focus of what Dawn and I do and why we do this way.
Yeah, and being play-based, or free play, you as a teacher should be in earshot of some of these conversations, or having these conversations with the children, and from some of those conversations you will find out what they're interested in, and you can build some of these theme tubs on their interests and curiosities. So
and in turn change out your centers, or change out how you're doing your curriculum, or when you want to change, like she will do Eric Carle for as long as they're interested in it. It may be a week, it may be 3 weeks, it may be 5 weeks. You just don't know how long they will find this interesting, and each classroom will be different. That's one thing that we have heard: I will be doing this for 3 weeks. That's not how you do any kind of theme or any kind of curriculum in a classroom. And that's what we do believe. When it is play-based, you watch a child, you watch a classroom, and it is based on each child's need and each child's interest in something. And that's what we've always done in our classrooms, is we watch what they're interested in. That's how these bins came about, was just some interest that we saw that the children, where they were at. And every time we do this, we do it as long as they show interest. If they don't show any interest, we pull it.
For example, the Very Hungry Caterpillar, I think throughout the month, they love, or they have in the past, again, each year, each group is different, but I can't tell you how many times throughout the month we read this Very Hungry Caterpillar over and over in a different way. And by the end of it, you could set this book out anywhere in the room and you can hear them in earshot reading the book to their friends, to themselves. And it really, they feel like readers, Again, using something big like this with all of the books, like Kim said, you can say you're going to run Eric Carle for a month, but really you need to base it on the kids, and if they're over it. That's why I always like to use something like this or Dr. Seuss as a blanket theme for the month, and then you're constantly putting other things into that theme to keep it new and fresh and exciting for the kids. I would say don't be afraid to ask questions. If you are unsure of how to plan, that's when you need to get with your co-teachers or someone like Kim that has a lot of know-how. Ask a lot of questions, or just get on the computer and look at all the ideas. There's not a shortage of ideas out there by any means. It really comes down to your group of kids, what's going to work, what's not, and you really have to limit. A week with one theme goes by really, really fast, and you could have X amount of stuff and only this much time to do it in. So. And
don't be afraid if it's not working to change. That's really how simple.
And it's better to have more. More is better.
Yeah.
Overplan. There's nothing wrong with being overplanned.
Yeah, because you don't have to do it all.
Nope. And you can tuck it back in your bin for next year if you didn't quite get to it, or put it in your art center for free play. They'll go through it in no time at all.
It is just something that is really a huge negative thing. You need to remember, when they get to elementary school, they're going to do a gazillion dittos. So preschool really is not the place for those. It's okay once in a while that those get done. However, it is not a place for those daily. They are basically something to see where they're at, for cutting, for writing, for fine motor, those types of things. That's what we want to see use for portfolios, for just gauging where they're at. But to use those on a daily basis, just because you want to feel a space, because you just don't want to go and make up some kind of activity for them to do, those really don't have a place in a true preschool experience, and you really need to keep that in mind. We've had teachers who have used those in the past to an excess, and those really don't have a place in a true preschool experience. Those really are more of an elementary education experience, and so you really need to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
You will get yourself into a lot of trouble if you start running a lot of dittos.
And there's just really, I mean, there's so many great ideas out there, and there's so many resources. I mean, whether it's books, the Mailbox magazine, the internet, Pinterest, there are so many things like this out there that you really don't need to use dittos.
Yeah.
I mean, things like this, upcycling something like a piece of styrofoam and throwing all the things out there. They will go to town on stuff like this. And again, you've got a colors element in here. You've got fine motor. They're peeling the backs off of stickers. They're deciding placement where they want to put things. There's so many different things in this one activity. And Shannon did this with the kids the other day, and she said some of our kids who have short attention spans sat there for 20, 30 minutes, and they weren't done when it was time to go outside. So we got to stop thinking like adults and think more like kids, and something that we think might not be very cool, throw it out on the table and see what the kids think. This was a paper towel roll cut in 2 pieces, and they made Dr. Seuss hats. You've got art, you've got, I'm not sure if they cut the circle out or not, but you've also got patterning. So yeah, dittos are really just, a filler. I mean, they have a small purpose in the classroom every now and again, but there's just way too much cooler stuff out there to be doing with the kids.
We have a lot of trash to fill our art center that they would love to use.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to put, we had a tape dispenser out there the other day. Don't be afraid to put that stuff out there and teach them how to use it, and then let them go to town. They've come up with some really, really cool things on their own. We've got a collection over here of collages. Now here was a ditto. It was a cutting activity.
That's what dittos are for.
We read Fox and Socks, and then they decorated the sock, and they cut it out, and it all tied in with the Dr. Seuss book. This was an activity that we did with the kids, and we had extra copies of it. We threw it out on the art table and just let them go to town however they wanted to.
When we watch teachers, sometimes they are very reserved in the classroom, and I can tell you that our room, I think, got watched more than probably anybody's because we would tend to dance and do the crazy stuff that most teachers, I think, are afraid to do. You have to remember that kids have no filter when it comes to watching teachers. And as a matter of fact, I think our kids would get more involved because they would see us. And you do have kids that are very, very afraid sometimes to. They're
not comfortable in their own skin yet to move their body, but they see their teachers who are these grown-ups who are,
acting like.
Yeah. It helps to make them more comfortable and to want to.
If they'll do it, then I'm going to do it. And so we'd have kids, and these moms would say, there is no way they're going to do that. And within the week, they were dancing or doing the silly things that we were doing. And so our moms would stand at the window or stand in the office and watch on the cameras. And I think that teachers have to remember, you actually are a kid. When you become a preschool teacher, you got to remember you become one of them, and you have to engage yourself at that level. And it's just like you said, you got to put yourself back into that mindset when you're doing these projects, and when you're getting into not doing dittos. Put yourself back there and make sure you're dancing like they are. Make sure you're getting into those centers and showing them how we play and how we put things back, and talking to them when they're in the centers, and making sure you're asking the questions. So what is it you're doing there? Make sure you're not just an adult at all times. And You're not just engaging yourself with your co-teacher, and you're not just standing on the playground talking to the other co-teachers. You need to be in that kid mode at least part of that day. I think that makes you a better teacher.
Absolutely.
You'll
enjoy your job more.
Enjoy your job better.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, with what you said about asking them questions, I mean, that's how you can really tie a lot of your teacher-directed activities back into that play base by, okay, we just did a big lesson here at the carpet, and just in regular conversation at the puzzle table or over in the science area, bring up what you taught them again and see how much they remember, how much they recall. Maybe you did a lesson on the ocean and you offered shells in the science area. Let them, recall from holding a shell what you talked about at the carpet. I mean, that's really how you tie everything that you're doing as an educator into the classroom. And then they take these conversations home with them and they tie them into their conversations they're having with their parents. One thing I'd like to point out is we have a question board over there by our file, which parents should be checking daily. It says ask your child about, and we usually will pose a question up there that has to do with either maybe a science experiment we did that day, an activity, a book we read. We've put it in our newsletter so parents can go home and really say, hey, tell me about this. It's not a vague question of how was your day? What did you do? Because typically the answer that you're going to get is, oh, I ate lunch.
I played outside.
Yeah, but if you say, what Dr. Seuss book did you read today? Oh, we read The Cat in the Hat, and we painted hats today. I mean, it really helps children at this age to carry on full conversations.
I think the other thing too is I don't want them to forget while they're being kids to also have expectations of our children. Dawn and I are probably two of the toughest teachers that have ever gone through these centers. And that does not mean that we do not highly, highly love these children. However, we do also put a lot of expectations on these children. So we also, want the children to achieve a lot, which means that there are rules, there are follow through. That means that we have rules and follow through for our parents as well. So we ask a lot of the kids, we ask a lot of our parents, and we want our children to follow those rules as we want our parents. So there are times that the kids may not be happy with the fact that we've asked you to behave in a certain manner and that you've made poor choices. So therefore, there are consequences for those choices. So the love and logic comes in for the children. The love and logic comes in for the parents. And we do base our center off of love and logic. And we actually have all the CDs and the trainings for that. So we ask our staff to listen to all that. And if parents need that, we ask them to go through that as well. So along with being a kid and asking our staff to stay in that mindset, I also ask our staff not to get into that too far, that they do not forget that there are also guidelines to make sure that they are keeping our children in mind as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of that goes back to, they see us getting silly and having fun and being goofy. They see that light, fun, bubbly Miss Kim, but then, you know what? When she's addressing a child that's made a poor choice, and you've got to get down on their level, and you use your stern voice now, but then 2 seconds later you're back being silly with them, and it's a nice little mixture. It really seems to work because they get to see you not just one way all the time, strict and stern, and
I love you, but there are rules.
Yes, exactly. which I'm sure most of these kids get at home too. They get fun mom and dad. They get mom and dad who say, I've had enough, you're missing out, there's rules. You just got to bring a nice blend of yourself to the classroom. And at the end of the day, just let these kiddos know how much you love them. Yeah, I mean, I love these kids like they're my own.
Yep.
And you know, a lot of work goes into planning and prepping, and the payoff is huge though. When you do all the footwork, the payoff is huge. And it shows in the kids, and you sit down at conferences at the beginning of the year with parents and show them some of their firsts, and you know, parents are even like, oh, are we ever going to get there? And you sit down at the spring conferences and you show them, this is what they did at the beginning of the year, this is how they wrote their name at the beginning of the year, and this is what they're doing now. And I mean, it is, even with some of our kiddos that are a little behind, you show them a portfolio, and there's always growth. I've never seen a kid leave our program without showing some sort of growth in all areas. So what we do works here.
All right. Hey, that was a good training. Make sure you take your notes into your director's office, have them give you a certificate for 30 minutes of continuing education. And if you love what Kim and Don are doing, like the video, hey, share it with the teacher friend of yours. Have